thank you, Weazel, for coming on such short notice. Called you here for a quick little announcement regarding the state government. So, the San Andreas state government is pleased to announce the introduction of the San Andreas Aviation Administration, or SAAA for short. The Aviation Administration is the government's regulatory arm for civilian aviation within the state of San Andreas. It will be overseen by Alex Schill here to my right as the appointed administrator for the agency. We wish to thank all applicants for their interest and the time taken to apply, and their applications will be forwarded to the administrator for internal job opportunities in the foreseeable future. The administrator of the SAA will have full authority to determine what regulations and rules aircraft will be expected to follow and how civilian aircraft will interact with the emergency aircraft in the sky. The administration will also oversee the creation of licensing and training so that civilians may be licensed to pilot aircraft within the state. Pilot licenses from out of state will not be accepted, nor will any certificate issued by an emergency department. The San Andreas state government will also be introducing penal code changes to accommodate for this change, and is expected to roll out soon. Until rescinded by the administrator, a statewide temporary flight restriction, or TFR for short, has been declared prohibiting all civilian aircraft from flying within the state, and violations may be subject to action by the administrator. The TFR does not prevent emergency aircraft from taking flight unless directed otherwise through a NOTAM. Government aircraft will continue to be authorized to fly in the state unhindered. The San Andreas state government will be continuing to monitor the airspace and performance of the administrator over the course of a 3-month probationary period, and we wish Alex Schill here the best and hope to see civilian aviation prosper under his leadership. Yeah, I'll open the floor to a statement by him. And any questions?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Cobb, Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner Castillo, Commissioner Osborne, everybody who has been part of this process. Miss Whitehorse especially, Emily Whitehorse, for going through all of the applicants and applications. I want to thank them very much for all of their time, everybody who has applied, and I want to just say I am humbled and honored to accept this position. That being said, there's a lot of work that has to be done. I ask that everybody remain patient while we get these procedures, policies, and restrictions in place. As Mr. Cobb said, there will be no hindrance on emergency aircraft as they operate now or as they have operated in the past. This includes, obviously, police aircraft, police helicopters, excuse me, as well as helicopters by other agencies that already have been licensed on an emergency basis. But that being said, I would want to say a thank you to Weazel for coming today, for any questions that and of course these restrictions for emergency aircraft would also be lifted for Weazel or any other government agency to operate as they have been operating up to this point. This temporary flight restriction, I know it might concern some people, is statewide. It is for civilian aircraft only, and those who are currently not authorized to fly. That being said, I want to reiterate one more point that Mr. Cobb made, and that is no out-of-state licenses will be accepted in this state. You will have to go through our process. Our process is being drafted up at this point and should be made available shortly. As soon as we get to work here, I will be, and finish up with this conference, I will be putting the hammer to the grindstone axe to the grindstone, excuse me, and continuing to work on and improve things that we have already talked about internally. With that, again, I want to say thank you to everybody who has applied. I will be looking at all the applications. I'm looking to build a team here to work on this, as it is not just one person's job. It's going to be a collaborative effort amongst a lot of people. So for everybody who does or did apply, I want to thank you. Your application will be reviewed, and you will be most likely contacted sometime in the future regarding things. If there's anything else, again, I would humbly open the floor to Weazel for any comments, questions.
Alex, will you be leaving your position at the LSPD to take on this full-time?
No, ma'am. This will have no bearing on my positions or work at the LSPD.
Alex, what kind of aircrafts can civilians see in the future, and where can we store them?
Sure. So that process is actually being worked on as we speak. We are talking with our suppliers to acquire appropriate aircraft. Most of these aircraft are going to be propeller aircraft, so I want to assure people it's going to be either propeller aircraft or rotary aircraft, aka helicopters. But that being said, you would be able to take, let's just say, a short flight. Take these out for what we want to see is businesses opening up. I want to see businesses I want to see people interested in skydiving tours and in sightseeing tours. We're going to have multiple opportunities to allow businesses, from mechanics on the ground to those flying in the air, opening up, giving so many people a chance to interact with the fine people of Los Santos, seeing it from multiple angles.
And one more question: Do you have a price range that you could give the people, or is it too
That
early?
is something that is currently being worked on with our suppliers. Unfortunately, as this is a brand new position for myself, I'm currently reviewing all of the proposals that have been submitted, consulting with the commissioners and government workers on importing prices, who will be able to sell these, etc. Obviously, for these aircraft to be sold, and I just want to stress one thing, and that at this time is patience. I understand that people want to get their certificate as soon as possible and fly, but we do have to take this a little bit slow and steady. We're building basically something from the ground up at this point. We will be encouraging people to open up their businesses and slowly coming up to points of being able to fly in the sky by putting your hours in, by putting your time in, and by continuing to maintain your private pilot's license, which is something that, again, we are working the details and logistics out on.
How rigorous will the training and background checks for licenses be? And will it restrict any of our citizens to acquiring a pilot's license?
Yes, sir. So, in two ways, I could just at least verify some details of that. Again, a lot of this is still a full work in progress, so I just want you guys to keep that in mind, and things may change from this point on. But at this point, it's going to be a thorough vetting process, meaning that it's going to be a full background check, criminal records check. I can't tell you exactly how deep that will go. I can just assure you that it is going to be a thorough and extensive background check, the same that we would give to any government state or law enforcement employee. It needs to be that way for the safety of the civilians of this city. However, when it comes to those people flying and the misdemeanor citations, etc., that we will take into place and into consideration when reviewing those for a pilot's license, it's going to still be in the works for the details. However, as you say, restrictions are going to be vetted thoroughly. Anything else that I can comment on with regarding acquiring a license? I can tell you the basics that we have right now. If you guys think of this like a gun license or a firearms license, obtaining that, there's the form A, B, and C. We're going to be looking at those with the cleanest background checks first. Obviously, this is an aircraft, which is something that can be considered and needs to be restricted even more. So what we're going to be doing, again, is a thorough background, thorough vetting. And then as far as it comes to allowing individuals, we will probably have a multi-stage process, just as the gun licenses do right now. Finally, one point to touch on, those who want to, I believe the second part of your question, those who want to fly independently. Or were you wondering about the process of what they have to go through?
Oh yeah, sorry. So, yeah, the question was about the training process. How rigorous will the training be?
Yeah, so I can't comment again on the particular details, but it's going to be something that requires effort. And just like many other government agencies, to obtain a license, you're going to have to put in the time, the effort, not only in ground studies, but in flight hours as well. This is going to be flight hours with hopefully other pilots, and flight hours as well, being guided by another pilot, however, doing it solo. Again, this is something we are working on. It can change as we go, and as we see the aircraft. Again, the aircraft, you can tell, is going to be a bit of a limitation as well. So, depending on the aircraft that we can acquire, depending on the types of aircraft that we can acquire, and the capabilities therein, we're going to have to tailor the program. That being said, there are going to be multiple flight hours required. I do want to stress, though, that this is going to be something that it's not going to be overly expensive. It's not going to be anything that's going to be, unfortunately, overly a hindrance. I don't want to make this a hindrance on anybody at this point. I really don't. I think it should be a relatively cheap license, but the thing is, it's going to cost people to go ahead and put the time and effort in to pay their instructors, and ultimately we would like to get to a point where, and this is one of the first things that we would like to do, is allow private flight schools to flourish in this state.